Stan Gibilisco here, proprietor and operator of amateur radio station W1GV Whiskey 1, Good Vibrations. When I was in high school, I put up a vertical antenna on the roof of my parents' house, which was the house where I lived, as most high school students in Rochester, Minnesota did. They lived with their parents. But their parents most of them wouldn't have let them do the stuff I did on the roof of that house. I put up a vertical antenna and it was cut for 20 meters, made out of steel conduit. I've described that before. I laid down 52 radials on the roof of that house. You know those little U-shaped nails that you can pound into things to hold wires down? Well, I pounded a whole bunch of those into the shingles of the house. My mother expressed some concern that it might cause water leakage in the roof, but my dad didn't seem too concerned about it. Anyway, it didn't happen. But at 52, and I measured their angles precisely so that they were, I think there were a number of them cut for the 20-meter band, and a number of them cut for the 15-meter band, and a number of them cut for the 10-meter band. We had no 17 or 12-meter bands at that time. It was fed with RG8U coax, running down and around into the fallout shelter, which served as my ham radio station, which I affectionately everybody called, the lab. I remember the first thing I ever did in the lab was, when we first got it, was to set some sulfur on fire. So, from a chemistry set. That cleared that lab of human activity really fast, right? But that was just an aside, just for kicks, But what I did was to get up onto that roof was I had to climb a ladder, which was you lean up against the roof and you climb up that ladder, and that can be quite a trick. And you certainly don't do it when there's snow or ice on the roof. It was a shallow pitched roof, so that I didn't have a whole lot of balance issues. But the house had a yard with multiple levels, sort of terraces with retaining walls made of stones. It was really kind of a neat backyard too. And I discovered that by getting up on the top level, the top terrace where it passed near the northwest corner of the house, I could actually pull myself up onto that roof without a ladder. So I started making a habit out of getting up on that roof by pulling myself up. How did I get off? Well, I took a flying leap, a running leap, and jumped off that roof onto the highest level of the terrace. It was maybe a 15-foot broad jump through the air, landing on a sloped surface. And I got it so that I could really do that pretty easily. And I don't know, my parents really never seemed to raise a whole lot of objection to that. Like, what if I fell a little short or slipped or something? They just let me go about my business tweaking that antenna. That was the antenna that withstood the 100+ mile an hour windstorm that we had in 1971, which was also the year that I devoted a great deal of my time to competitive swimming. So between the swimming pool and the lab and running off that roof and then climbing back up on, I don't know, I had to tweak that antenna a lot. I couldn't just leave it alone. I put other antennas up later with different masts on that same roof, and of course involved the same running and flying, but that was a radio ham in high school in the 1970s. Didn't work a real lot of DX with that antenna because most of the compass directions were obscured by a hill behind the house. But I did find it really fun when I could work DX over that hill in places like Russia, which back then was called the Soviet Union, European stations, and some more, some more rare DX now and then, but mostly stateside contacts, all CW, of course, with the Drake R4A and T4X and an ICO, electronic keyer, EICO, ICO. And everything was vacuum tubes, much less susceptible to electromagnetic pulse problems or transients on the line. Unfortunately, we never got directly struck by lightning, and I did develop the habit of disconnecting the antenna from the back of the Johnson Viking Matchbox Transmatch, which I used because that 20-meter antenna did not exactly make a low SWR on 15 or 10 meters. But I just force-fed it 200 watts plate power input, probably translated to 110 watts RF output. And so those were the days of running and jumping off the roof, hoisting myself back up on, and I couldn't do that now. I'd land on this Charcot foot, and I'd probably be writhing on the ground on that top terrace. The bone would probably come right through the bottom of my foot now, at age 66. Can't do the same things now as I did when I was 17. Can't swim as fast. Can't do CW as fast. But I can still do CW, and I still have an antenna that I force feed with a high SWR and don't pay attention to the consequences. I run QRP more or less now, only 10 watts output on CW and only 7 watts on PSK 31, and never had a complaint yet from any of the neighbors regarding my radio interfering with their stuff, any of their stuff, like television or stereo or microwave oven or heart pacemaker or pancreas pacemaker or whatever it might be. Well, anyway, that's the little story of the roof with the U-shaped nails in it and the kid that kept pulling himself up and jumping off in 1971 particularly, and who wanted to be the next Olympic champion, 50 and 100 meter freestyle. Didn't quite make it, but I had fun. Stan Gibilisco, W1GV, saying 73, and so long, which, then as now, translates into da-da-da-da-da-da.